gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Source Material Comics Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Starcher, and tonight I brought along my good buddy from the Unspoken Issues podcast, Chris Armstrong, to talk about Malignant Man with me tonight. So, Chris Armstrong, are you ready to discuss James Wan's Malignant Man tonight?
Let's do it.
This was one that Mark threw onto the schedule, I believe, because James Wan has a movie coming out that's called Malignant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, obviously, if you're like going through the Googles and you're just like, well, James Wan, Malignant, and then they're like, well, James Wan he had written a comic called Malignant Man. You're immediately like, well, that's got to be what it's based on.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, not the case. Not the case.
If the trailer for the movie is any indication, other than the word malignant, there's nothing similar to what the comic is.
I recognize the name James Wan, but is he a famous director?
Yeah, I think so. I'm actually a pretty big fan of his movies. He did Saw, was his first, like, at least his first studio movie.
That's an unknown title. Oh my goodness. That is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, he did that with I think Leigh Whannell or Lee Whannell. I think it's Leigh Whannell was the writer, and they did Saw, which was a big, like, breakout hit. It may have even been an independent movie that was distributed by a studio. I don't know the details on that, but that became a big hit. And then he had a couple of follow-ups. He wasn't involved as much with the sequels to those movies. He had a couple of follow-ups that weren't very successful. And then he kind of came back around about 2011, I think, with Insidious, which is like one of my favorite horror movies.
I've never seen that. I know it's a franchise now. Isn't there like 3 of them?
I think there's like 5, but only the first one is any good, really.
Oh, really? Yeah. I've heard
he did the first 2, and then other people did the sequels after that. But I really like that movie. I like the Conjuring movies. He did the first couple of those.
Obviously, I need to pay a little bit more attention. I guess when I get into a scary movie, I'm not really paying too much attention to the directors. I'm just, making sure I don't wet my pants because I'm a big baby. I mean, the Conjuring franchise, I've watched. I went and saw the first one in theaters. You know, when I was growing up, I loved to read about the supernatural.
Yeah.
So I knew all about Lorraine Warren. I knew all about Ed Warren. When I go into this movie, I have no idea what I'm getting into other than just seeing a few of the trailers here and there, watching, the first Conjuring. And I sit down and I'm like, oh, crap, this is Ed and Lorraine Warren. And they're talking about one of the cases that they did. I had no idea. I'm learning now that was James Wan. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I really like the Conjuring movies. A lot of, Saw is a lot different. It kind of like started the, I guess, torture porn is the term for a lot of those movies that kind of spun out of the success of Saw. I saw the first 3 Saw movies and then I bailed. I didn't watch any of the others after that. His later successes like Insidious and the Conjuring movies, depend a lot more on like camera work and atmosphere, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then he did, I think because of the success of the Conjuring movies, he did one of the Fast and Furious movies, the 7th one, I think.
Okay.
And then he did Aquaman.
Never seen Aquaman. I may have seen parts of the 7th Fast and the Furious, but
yeah, his new one looks similar to like the Conjuring Insidious stuff. This new one he's got coming out, Malignant, which I'm looking forward to because I like, his horror stuff.
I doubt I'll be going to the theaters to watch Malignant, but if it holds up to the Conjuring and the reputation of Insidious, I'll probably give it a watch at some point. So this is Malignant Man. I'll read the description from Amazon here. This came out, by the way, Malignant Man came out in 2011. Looks like the latter part of 2011. Like I said, it was credited as being written by James Wan, Michael Allen Nelson, art by Piotr Kowalski. From Amazon, here's a description of the book, and then I'll kind of hop into the synopsis. Actually, I'll have a couple other questions. We'll get into the synopsis. But so Alan Gates, a cancer patient with a terminal diagnosis, is resigned to his fate until he discovers that his tumor is actually a mysterious parasite. Granted a second lease on life and incredible otherworldly powers, Alan must fight against an evil army buried beneath society's skin, all the while unlocking the secrets of his forgotten past. Dark, twisted, and unique, Malignant Man is a sci-fi thriller that can't be missed. I think you probably threw your hat in on this because of James Wan. Am I right, or did you read this?
No, that's correct. I had never heard of this until I saw it pop up on the list for options for the podcast.
Okay, cool.
And I guess I put the connection to, like, well, he's got a movie coming out called Malignant, so I thought they were probably connected somehow.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll give that a shot. I wouldn't mind reading that. I didn't know Juan had ever done anything with comics. I have a feeling he probably came up with a concept and maybe the story idea, and then I'm assuming that Nelson was probably the scripter and actually wrote it.
It says co-written
off of a concept from Juan and story from Juan.
Yeah, co-written by fan favorite Michael Allen Nelson, who apparently was. Do you recognize that name at all? Because I
recognize the name, but I can't place anything that he's done. I'm assuming he's done other stuff that Boom put out.
28 Days Later.
Okay, yeah, that was a cool comic.
Okay, all right, first 2 issues. That synopsis is coming up, but first let me talk about Amazon Music. If you're looking for a good platform that can fill those musical needs, Amazon Music has you covered. If you head to getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network, you can get a free 30-day trial where you can check out over 70 million songs. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network for that free 30-day trial. Coming home from disappointing news at his doctor's, Alan Gates is dealing with the fact that the cancer he has will kill him within 2 to 3 weeks. On his way to his apartment, he attempts to halt a purse snatching when the criminals shoot him 3 times, once in the head and twice in the chest. Somehow, still alive, Alan is rushed to the hospital where they remove the top of his skull to find tentacles squirming inside. Just then, a young woman named Sarah bursts through the surgery door, steals Alan, and wheels him through the hospital, all the while engaging in a gunfight with some energy blade wielding agents in business suits. Stapling Alan's skull back on, they escape, and Sarah explains that the thing inside his head will help him heal and also give him powers. Resisting and in disbelief, Alan runs home only to find another set of agents waiting for him. Unleashing powers he cannot understand, firing energy bolts, mimicking kung fu he had seen on TV, and reading minds, Alan cannot comprehend what his abilities are. Sarah is able to find him at the end of the fight and takes him to see Dr. Ezra. Ezra explains that the being, a malignant, in Alan's head is from a spaceship that had landed in the 70s, and when it accidentally attached itself onto a colleague, they began to realize its symbiotic relationship granted powers as well. However, the most suitable hosts were children, and so an experiment began that Alan was a part of, but due to the trauma of killing a friend during that experiment, his malignant tried to protect him, causing him to forget. When Alan ran away from the project, the government shut it down, and Ezra made sure the kids escaped unharmed. But now Ezra's previous partner, a man called Dr. Cancer, is sending the agents out to find Alan in order to harness his power. Alan also learns of the metal called placentium that is unique to each malignant, giving them a powerful blade that is able to permanently kill other malignant-powered individuals. However, Alan's placentium is not currently in Ezra's lab. It is in Area 51. What do you think here, man? What do you think of these, I guess, these first 2 issues as we get into it?
I mean, I was surprised because it didn't take long for me to figure out that this is probably not going to be what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting concept. It kind of plays out more like an action flick.
Absolutely.
Any kind of like horror comic or, it's sci-fi related, obviously, because there's alien parasite type stuff going on. Pretty gory, a lot of like extreme violence and stuff in the, with his confrontation with the mugger,
dude.
Kind of a shocking moment when the mugger just unloads on him.
Cracking his skull open. I mean, you talk about gore. One of the things that I think you and I both have an appreciation for is The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and the body horror that comes from that. Now, we don't get a whole lot of that in this book, but there's some, especially when they, when they crack open his skull and they take the top of his skull off and there's like tentacles coming out around his brain. I was like
Lovecraftian,
yeah, it's pretty freaky. And the fact that he wakes up in the middle of the surgery, that's there's horror stories written around just that alone. I like how I'm okay with blood, gore, and whatever in my comics. It doesn't put me off. We only get tastes of it through here, and as I was reading it, we were learning a little bit about his past, but they're not going to tell you everything right up front. Yeah. You're kind of experiencing it like Alan is, where he's remembering bits and pieces of it as we go through the comic, and then of course by the end of the first 2 issues, we're back to the lab where he was as as a kid. I can't remember if we get the explanation here. I think I fed a little bit of that into the synopsis just because I wanted it to make sense, but I don't think we get the full explanation in these first 2 issues as to why he's so traumatized. There's pictures, panels and pages dedicated to the flashbacks of him just having covered in blood, and people just, the rest of the kids just looking at him astonished as to why did you do something like this? And you're just like, what is it? What did he do? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What happened? One of the things I definitely wrote down was the power set, or the powers of the Malignants. I mean, what did you think of those going into this? Did it seem cliche to you at all? That,
you know, he gets attacked in the second issue, I guess, by they're kind of like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it very similar, like the agents in the Matrix. Like, it's all these guys in black suits, black ties, you know, approach him, and they handle himself pretty well for, you know, a guy who a few days earlier was on the verge of dying of brain cancer, basically.
Yeah.
But he exhibits some of these powers he can't really control. Like he's using a wooden baseball bat to protect himself, and then he just, I guess, instinctively it explodes, and the shards just like annihilate a couple of the, you know, the assailants or whatever. But he doesn't really know what he's doing. You know, as we go forward into like this, I guess maybe in the third issue, when the girl shows up and is trying to train him and stuff, he picks it up really quick or whatever.
You mentioned the Matrix, and boy, do I feel that all over.
A lot of Matrix vibes throughout, especially through the last couple issues.
Yeah.
When the action really picks up.
When they decide to take the fight to the agents and Dr. Cancer, it's very Matrix, like him learning things by osmosis. I mean, that was kind of, I mean, granted, the Matrix was all about just downloading into your brain and then boom, you know, but this was, what's the name of it? The Malignant gave him the power to just kind of watch that stuff and absorb it and use it. So yeah, a lot of Matrix vibes in here. And I don't know if that's intentional.
I mean, by this time, the Matrix sequels had come out and there was a big backlash. And I think the movies weren't as big of a deal by 2010, 2011 or so. Dude. I think it was a pretty clear influence, at least on some of the visuals and stuff.
Yeah, I'll agree. And one of the other things that they do, and this is, you know, throughout the book, they talk, and I mentioned this kind of in the synopsis, where these agents that come after them are able to wield these blades, which is, okay, if we're going to say anything's probably unique, if we're going to separate this from the Matrix somehow, that's probably a big thing. By the first 2 issues, I can tell we're firmly into an action comic territory than we are into something that's really thriller or, you know, horror related in any way. I mean, what do you think of the art?
It's not too bad. It's one of the problems I tend to have with like stuff from like Boom Studios or IDW. A lot of times the art is just not on par with what Marvel and DC have, probably because Marvel and DC have the prestige characters. They're probably going to pay more royalties, are going to pay out more through those companies. There are exceptions like Lock and Key, for example, from my IDW. Gabriel Rodriguez is a great artist and stuff like that. You know, you get really good artwork and different stuff, but Kowalski, is that right?
So 30 Days of Night, which is, that's...
must have been one of the spinoffs. I think Ben Tibblesmith was the artist on the original 30 Days of Night.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah, this has a publication date of December 20th, 2017. So Bloodborne, Clive Barker's Nightbreed, a lot of horror-related stuff here. God of Tremors, Join the Future, Marvel Knights Hulk, Monster World, Sex, okay, all right, Terminal Hero, The Steam Man, The Witcher Omnibus. I know what you're saying when it comes to Boom Studios, IDW. Sometimes the art can be so like washed out. Like it's not, for some reason, it just doesn't seem as crisp is probably not the word, because a lot of times I think... I don't like to criticize somebody in regards to the art. I will, but I don't like to do it because it's, you know, it's their style. That's your style. Okay, that's your style. Maybe it has something to do with the book itself too. I wasn't lost in the art to where I couldn't figure out what was going on. Every panel had some type of definition and got the point across. So,
it flows fine. You know, I'm not trying to be overly critical. It's just it's not spectacular. It gets the job done though.
Gets the job done. That's perfect. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get into the last 2 issues here, or parts 3 and 4. I forget. This is a trade paperback, so there's no issues as far as I know. All right. Arriving at Area 51, Sarah and Alan are trying to figure out how to get into the base in order to find the Placentium when Dr. Cancer's infiltration team arrives at the same time. As the military military engage Cancer's agents. The carnage begins to occur when 3 of Cancer's elite malignant squad show up with placentium blades, killing Area 51 soldiers. So, yeah, you got to picture this. You got Alan and Sarah who are trying to get in there. They're doing their best to get in there stealthily, I guess is the best word. And then you have Dr. Cancer who just flies a helicopter into Area 51, drops a bunch of agents in there, and they are just gutting people left and right. But they're after this blade. This creates a diversion, enough for Sarah and Alan to sneak in and find the sphere just before the 3 malignant soldiers arrive. As they fight, Alan's malignant kicks in, and with the sphere, which has now turned into a blade, Alan kills 2 of them. With the last of Cancer's malignant soldiers trying to kill them, Alan and Sarah are able to escape and rush to get back to Dr. Ezra. However, when they arrive there, they find that Ezra and the children that were at the facility had been attacked and all are dead or nearly dying. Finding Dr. Ezra just before he passes away, Alan sees through a vision that Dr. Cancer was the one that murdered everyone in the facility. Meanwhile, Cancer gets the report from the malignant that Alan and Sarah faced at Area 51. I know he has a name, but I didn't put it in the synopsis. And we learn at this time that Cancer is breeding malignants to create super soldiers. Yes, that's right. He's going to make his own army. Alan and Sarah are able to find a vacant barn and prepare for their planned confrontation with Dr. Cancer. When the day comes, they storm the building, plowing through waves of agents. When their attackers appear to be defeated, the malignant they faced from Area 51 shows up and begins to fight them. During the skirmish, Sarah is buried under some debris, crushing her legs, also getting cut by the evil malignant's blade. With some trickery, Alan is able to kill Cancer as malignant and tells Sarah he will come back for her after he kills Dr. Cancer. Here, it is shown the traumatic event in Alan's past was when Dr. Cancer tricked a young child into attacking Alan, causing his malignant to lash out, killing him. The 2 opposing forces finally come to blows and an epic fight ensues. When Cancer cuts Alan's hand off, it appears Alan has been beaten and is about to be killed. But when Alan remembers that the bullets are still inside his body, his malignant uses its powers to shoot them out into Dr. Cancer, giving Alan the moment he needs to strike him down with his placentium blade. In our epilogue, Sarah is recovering with Alan, and they are planning to find the facility where the malignants are being bred to make sure that it does not fall into the wrong hands. But first, Alan reveals that Dr. Ezra told him that his malignant's spaceship was the only one that survived the crash, and he feels compelled that is where their next journey will take them. So, I didn't really get into this in the synopsis. Alan gets his hand cut off at one point, and he sticks a shotgun in his arm, didn't he? Something crazy like that. It's goofy looking, but
kind of an Evil Dead, Army of Darkness vibe.
Very much, very much. I wrote down here. I said I get this Empire Strikes Back feel with all the hand cutting and force using.
Yeah,
the malignant can I say using the force. That final battle between Dr. Cancer and Alan. His malignant uses the force to propel those bullets out of his body to shoot Dr. Cancer, which is crazy.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
Yeah, I really did like that because, you're kind of building up like, oh, man, what is he going to do now? Because Dr. Cancer has this dude down. He unleashes, which is pretty neat. We get the backstory. Obviously, we finally get the resolution about how Alan, when he was a young kid at the lab, ended up killing a friend of his because Dr. Cancer, I think, tricked the kid into kind of provoking him. The kid was only doing what the doctor said. But
yeah, the kid was crying while he was, beating on him, which is that kind of horrific the way it plays out.
It really is because, the kid doesn't want to do this, but the doctor's telling him to do it, that he needs to do it. And then, Alan's malignant kicks in and just kills the kid, obviously. But again, it gives you another reason to hate Dr. Cancer.
He's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, he's not redeemable in any way. He's irredeemable. Matrix all the way when they storm that facility, dude.
Yeah, you get vibes of the lobby scene in the Matrix, and there's a shot where they're kind of surrounded by all these agents, and it's like the Agent Smith, City Park fight, Burly Man sequence in the second Matrix movie where Neo's fighting 100, Agent Smiths or whatever.
So, okay, James Wan comes to him with the story and says, okay, here's what I want to do. How much freedom do you think Nelson had, He obviously let this go to print.
This could have been a movie script that he wanted to make.
If there's anything I'm going to criticize about this book, it's the fact that this is an idea that we could easily draw parallels to a very famous movie.
Right. And there's also like the stuff with the kids and the facility with the powers. Like it's kind of, I don't know if you ever read Harbinger, the Valiant comic. I've only read the more modern version. I didn't read Valiant stuff in the 90s, but I get a lot of vibes from that through this too, with like the kids being in a government research facility, being, you know, studied and utilized as weapons basically and stuff. Kind of a mishmash of a lot of different things in this book.
I think we start out really strong with this. You know, we have this guy who's dying of cancer, and then all of a sudden he finds out he has these great powers. All right, that's cool. Where are we going to go? And I feel like they were just like, okay, well, let's take some of these other elements and just kind of put it in here. Then it all of a sudden becomes unoriginal for me.
Yeah, stuff we've already kind of seen before.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a misstep in this book, that's it. It's still a decent story. I still liked where, you know, from where we started to where we got to the end. I mean, I'm invested in Alan trying to figure out what his past was. I'm invested in how he's going to survive Dr. Cancer's attacks and if he's going to be able, well, the final confrontation with Dr. Cancer. And of course, you know, his friendship with Sarah and where that's going to go. But, you know, this came out, we said 2011, and he clearly left the door open for something else to happen afterwards. And I don't think
there was a follow-up that I'm aware of.
The next chapter would have been pretty neat. I think that would have been a fun story to tell. Like, okay, we're going to go to see what's going on the ship, and now we've got a whole, you know, in space. Here we go. You know, we're heading in space, and I'm sure there's probably going to be some hijinks there. But it was a decent story, other than just what felt very, very familiar. That's about probably the worst marks I can give it. So, thoughts on the final two issues, and your thoughts on the wrap it up, however you want to do it.
Yeah, the second and third, or I'm sorry, the third and fourth issues, that's where the bulk of the action takes place. There's a lot of really cool action back and forth, even though a lot of it, like you said, is really familiar. The attack on the military installation, when I'm just going to call them agents,
that's what I put them.
Show up and they just start hacking through people. They're cutting soldiers in half, lopping their heads off left and right. We get a little pause where Alan and Sarah, it's kind of like super rushed, where they go off together and then they're, you know, in an abandoned barn, like training and stuff. And she's just like, okay, I think you're ready. I mean, I guess time has passed because, you know, Alan's hair is growing out and everything. It just seemed kind of rushed, but I mean, they only had 4 issues to work with, I guess. Before they were ready for their big assault on the facility, he cuts his own hand off so he can attach the shotgun. And it's like, is that really better than just holding the shotgun? I'm not sure. Is he reloading it through the Malignant or something? I don't get. I mean, it's a cool visual, and I understand that, but it just seemed a little silly.
I was going to say, at some point, you're probably going to want to drop the shotgun so you can maybe you can go use the bathroom. Okay, I don't know. It's just like it gets a little bit inconvenient. I just kind of scrolled past that point. That last final agent is coming at them at Cancer's facility, and he's the one that's using that placentium blade, and he's like chopping I-beams and stuff like that. He's obviously this formidable force. He's the only one that's left of Cancer's agents. Oh my gosh, you know, what's this battle going to be like? And okay, so this is the agent talking. Hello, Alan. You know what they say about payback, don't you? Yeah, she's standing right behind you. And so the guy's like, you think you can sneak up behind me? And he turns around and nothing's there. And then when he turns back around, Alan shoves that placentium blade right through his throat. And that's the end. That's the end of that battle. So, I mean, Cancer's battle with Alan was pretty cool. But, I mean, that one felt very anticlimactic.
Right. He looks like Bloodscream, the Marvel character.
Yeah.
The shades and the ponytail and everything. A lot of things remind me of something else in this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Overall, it was cool. I liked it. I don't know that I'd ever read it again, but it was pretty entertaining, and like the over-the-top violence and stuff actually did help it. It gave it a tone that I thought worked pretty well. Maybe my favorite moment in the whole book is when they rolled that placentium or whatever ball into into the lobby, and the guy picks it up, the agent or whatever picks it up, and like, what is this? And it just shoots the blade right through his mouth into his
dude.
through the back of his head.
Gosh.
So yeah, a lot of stuff like that. It just seems I've done no research on this, but it just makes me think that this was probably a James Wan film idea, and it was at a time when he had some bombs, so he wasn't like able to get a movie made, so he probably just decided to repurpose it as a comic, and that's probably how this got started. That's an assumption, but
yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It's if this was the script though, and you set this on anybody's desk, they're going to be just like us. They're going to be like, okay, I know where that came from. I know where that came from. You want us to put that on screen? I don't think we're going to be able to. Anyway, just had a fun time. It was there. Yeah, just like you said, I probably won't read this again either. I could tell people I did, though. Somebody be like, hey, I'm watching Malignant. Well, let me tell you about a comic that has nothing to do with it, but it was my fun. We'll go ahead and close up shop here, man. Let's go ahead and get into plugs. So, hey, it's plug time, and you all know what that means. This would be a good time to plug the sponsor of the W2M network, and that is Grammarly. For you, the listeners of Source Material, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at BrodyMan34. You can also catch me occasionally on the Unspoken Issues podcast as well with Jesse.
That's right, man. We got our discussion about Duckman and Rocco's Modern Life. You and I just kind of get together, read a comic that was silly, and then talk about some fun stuff. That's really all that episode is, and I really love those types of episodes. So, yeah. But of course, this is Source Material on the Rattleichin Broadcasting Network. I know that we have Transformers Back to the Future scheduled for September 10th. So I got to sit down, talk about how Rodimus Prime is the leader of the Resistance in 2015, and Doc Brown's got to come up and save them all. It's great stuff. So yeah, check that out. But I've kept everybody here long enough. We are getting out of here. We'll catch you next time. For Chris Armstrong, I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Rattleichin Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word, and as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.